Hello, the generals. So I've been talking with some Propertarian, and so we're because can't stop talking about it. Let's face it, man. Everyone wants to hear about it. Everyone, man, wants to hear about the Propertarian thing. Okay, so I got the other side of things. So I'm gonna present you the other side, the defensive side of Propertarians, the Propertarians. So what they're saying effectively is one of the most important things they're saying is that one thing that people do not see through the cameras, which is they're kind of right in that, is that you don't see the real life networking that they say they're doing. So supposedly there was a local success in the sense of they did get local followers. So I guess people saw their event and decided to join in. This is what they say. Supposedly you'd have to ask Kurt himself and it's Brandon Haynes, I think they said, supposedly know how many people were brought new to the Propertarian movement. So that's one benefit they say is part of the whole thing. Another question is answering the question of whether or not, there was any benefits really. And to them, the benefit was in indeed being able to, get better networking, to be able to have a publicity stunt, to be able to attract more real life people themselves, because according to them, their main power base is not really in the internet, but it's rather in the real world. At least, or at very least, they're trying to move the core of their thing to the real world. But according to them, it's already in the real world. So if they lose the internet, they don't care. They don't care at all. So that is what we have right now. And another thing they argue is that so they say that they partner with these people, right? They partner with these people, and they say that there was no, even though these two A people, you know how they are, right? They're kind of soft. They're kind of, you know, they're kind of like, they're not the kind of people that would kind of side with propertarianism itself, like truly side with it. That, you know, is an issue. But according to them, there was a previous 2A event in the same place that turned out to be completely and utterly fine. And so they argue that, well, this time, well, it went fine the last time, so there shouldn't have been any expectation of going wrong the next time, which is this time. What I will say to this though is this: not because it goes good one time doesn't mean. I mean that might very well mean that you were just lucky. You were lucky. It doesn't mean that that's the norm, right? So it has to be a matter of, okay, let's say that you do it and it turns out good again and again and again and again and again. All right, you know what? You can say that if indeed something other happens, it's a shock. But right on the sample size, if you're gonna take the sample size of one and use that to say, wow, there was no way I was expecting this to happen. Come on, just because it went well one time doesn't mean that it's gonna go well the next time. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. But yeah, they're saying that they got backstabbed and they had no way of knowing whether or not this was actually going to happen, whether they're going to get backstabbed. There was no way of the possibility of these guys calling in BLM with them was effectively so low that maybe they put up as a risk, but they didn't consider that as the risk. So in their strategic calculations, they didn't really take that into account, and they're arguing that in a way that was so unlikely that they're kind of that you couldn't expect them to actually hold them in account. That's just hindsight. Now, all right, maybe I mean I would still be careful with the people you partner, but okay, fine. I mean, if you want to argue that, perhaps okay, fine. I mean, if you want to argue that, really. There's another element, however, there's another thing to this, which is, I believe, also the context when it's talked about. So they want to say, well, we did do again. We did the best we could in that situation. You have, instead of escalating towards something really bad, which it could have, they decided to take this route, which is all right. I mean, they hold as the what you could say is a still peaceful route, even though the route is bad. It's still peaceful. So that's what they're saying. At least it ended up peacefully. So it didn't escalate to heck. So at least it didn't go full on like hell, effectively. And there's other questions Yeah, John Mark leaving is they're simply saying because he's afraid of being doxxed, so that's why. Uh, and anyone saying, well, maybe they're glowing or whatever. Propertarians say no, they're not glowing. And then there's other. I think that's the main thing that there is. Also, they're if ever insisting that everyone, the right wing, should stop like attacking them, that everyone should stop pouncing on them, because well, you guys are doing cancel culture against your own, and you guys are just babies. Well, you guys are not like letting yourself be educated. Man, you guys are throwing us. I what you're saying is that you guys are throwing us under the bus just for a little mistake, right? We just did a freaking mistake. Give us a break. Stop throwing us under the bus, you little babies. And also, there's an excuse to give for John Mark leaving. That well, John Mark saw the negative response and says, "Well, I mean, there's the people that they're supposed to lead are the dissidents, I suppose, that they're supposed to lead are just actually enemies at this moment, right? Because they threw us under the bus, so it might as well just lead, right? So it seems that Propertarians want to take the leading role, in the whole this part of the right, and well, guess what? Maybe they might have had a chance to this, but this chance is destroyed, messed up. And again, they whine about, well, you're not presenting constructive criticism, right? I mean, well, people know fully well that getting more control for the venue is that, like, when you do a rally like this, you have to maximize your control over the situation, maximize control over the context. You can't just have the context just be randomly whatever, because more likely than not, it's going to be against you because you're in a hostile environment, right? So you have to maximize the control over the environment. Another thing was that a lot of people are laughing at Kurt's wet under, saying that it's peace, but the Propertarians are saying no, it's sweat. All right, that's something I've just dropped. Like, it's sweat or piss. All right, we'll drop that. I mean, it's funnier if it's piss, but all right, if it's, I mean, supposedly it was like 100 degrees Fahrenheit or something, so it was hot. So fine. It's not unreasonable. It is not unreasonable. So, and if they want to take that, fine, take that. It wasn't peace. It was just sweat. Now, kind of, I would say it's not kind of very, very embarrassing to allow that to happen. But I'd say that all right, I'll accept it. It's fine. Now, as for the closed venue and the open venue, what the idea was, so supposedly they did think about whether they should do a closed or open venue, and they decided that they were going to do the open venue because that's more exposed, and so even though it's riskier, and they knew it was riskier, it would still be it's a larger potential reward than a closed venue. Another problem they had was that they were planning this real quick. Like, they planned it in 4 weeks. Well, you can't even get like a permit in that time. So what they did is the reason why they partnered with these guys because these guys had prepared from beforehand, right? They had prepared from beforehand, and they had gotten the permit beforehand. So they decided to join this other guy's venue because these guys are the guys who had the permit. So this is why the guys had the control. So yeah, and finally, so the signatures I think are supposed to like be sort of support. Be Again, they're trying to show that, hey, we do really have support among the people. And so what you end up having is a few signatures on this paper, and it seems like you can either use signatures, you can use your real names, which I would really not advise anyone to have done. Use your real names, like obviously a bad idea. But anyways, that's what they did, and that's what they got. So at least they did get the signatures down. They got the signatures down, like 100 people or something. Not that much, but it's something. So that's just how it is. No, that's just how it is. Strategically, in the end, strategically, it was a mistake. But they're saying, well, that's just hindsight. We couldn't have possibly known that it could have gone that badly. Or sure, it could have been it's one of the outcomes. What happened now was one of the outcomes, but that was like an unlikely outcome. That was not like likeliest outcome. That's what they're arguing. They're arguing that, well, this is not something that was supposed to that would happen, was sure to happen. This was actually an unlikely outcome, more like. It was still a significant chance, but hey, it wasn't the only thing that could happen. It could have simply gone without problems, like the last rally that they did. Could have gone without problem. Another thing is that again, I mean, when you have strategic sense, I mean, the last rally would have been like what, months ago, right? I mean, yeah, it did months ago before the lockdown and before all these protests. The environment, the climate, the political climate is very different. So when you have a strategic sense, you have to take into account all these things. Well, how's the political climate? How's the opponents? How opponents maneuvering? If we're gonna partner with these people, how much leverage do we actually have on these people to keep them in check, to keep them restrained, so they don't screw us over. You know, what risk are we willing to take? What kind of reward? What's the ratio between the reward and the risk? Right? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And then, what if things go wrong? What do we do? What do we do if things go wrong? Let's say these BLM guys start coming in. The question becomes, what do you do? What do you do when you got these BLM guys marching in? Do you leave? Do you have some sort of arrangement with your partners to like counterbalance that? Because both sides were armed, by the way. Both sides were armed. So, like, what do you actually do in each situation, each outcome? If they just indeed did find all the outcomes that could have happened, and thought about each outcome, then they should have thought about, okay, what are we gonna do to minimize whatever damage may come on each outcome. But it doesn't seem like they did that. It seems like a very disordered thing. For example, again, that's the final thing I'll say. The control on the audience was not that much. Again, there were people in the audience that they shouldn't really have had, and there's also just a matter of, for example, Kurt. I think again there's supposedly. I think it was weird. It was like Kurt wanted them to say no, but the audience said yes, type of thing, right? And I saw Kurt in one of his posts say that, well, his people have fallen for the trap, for the ruse, for the bait. But it's like, you're supposed to like talk this out with your members, right? You're supposed to come together before the whole thing and tell each one of them, look, if this happens, do this. If we're expecting this to happen, so if that happens, then all the you have to put all the contingencies down for what you expect. That's simple. That's very simple. And people are still debating among themselves like what was the best, what was bad, whether it was hindsight, whether they could have actually strategically calculated this. They're still debating. But so far, the Propertarians are starting to like counterattack and try to regain ground. I see a lot of this stuff about it's not really our fault. We couldn't have really predicted this. That type of thing. But all right, I think that for now, I mean that's all we have. And again, people are on this stuff like like freaking flies or bees, whatever it is, on a lamp, on a light. They're just running right at it. That's the the CTR, for example, is like 40% on some videos. Like it's people really love this stuff. And also another thing to say is that Jim has released a video on the piston thing, and it's hilarious. Oh. And if Jim really gets serious in this thing, oh boy, this will be a very interesting thing. You're gonna have shit posters just raining down. So yeah, but so far, I think that Propertarians are losing effectively. They're trying to like regain ground and credibility with this, but I don't think they're really gaining much. Yeah, they're not really gaining much. It's again, as I've said before, it's a very difficult hole to get yourself out of. It looks bad, and you can come and you can say, well, yeah, but you're just doing 30 minutes. But as some general has very well said, when you do a rally, you know what really matters in the end. What matters in the end is not your secret. It doesn't matter what those things you can't see, what people cannot see, because when it's a publicity stunt, that's what matters. Is what comes out, what is in front of cameras. That's what matters. And what's in front of cameras is horrible. Then it's just gonna be horrible. It doesn't matter how much networking you have done. It doesn't matter how many things behind the scenes you have done. If the very the exterior of the thing, the cameras, the minutes that are recorded are bad, it's gonna be viewed bad, and it's gonna end up really bad for you. Okay, to the point where John Mark, for example, deleted everything, and it's now, he's crying on his bed or whatever. That is the current situation. And we're gonna keep updating. We're gonna keep updating, and as long as people, are interested in this thing, gonna keep pumping it out, keep talking about this stuff, because this is what people want. This is what people want to talk about. This is what people want to hammer about. So people gonna get it. Well, see ya.